Back out here yet, or what?
Yeah, you have all your members. Commissioner,
There's nobody
citizen
left
member
over?
Sagai is attending remotely.
Okay. Okay. Call a meeting of the Board of Finance to order. It's a regular meeting, Monday, November 25th, 2024. Actually starting a little bit late, it's about 20:06. Is there any public comments relative to agenda items? Any public comments relative to agenda items? Anybody online comment? Okay. Move on to item number 3. Approval of the minutes of October 28th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item number 4 is receive a recommendation from Water Bureau regarding customer assistance grants administered by Operation Fuel. But before we start, I'd like to ask a question. I mean, this is a Board of Finance meeting. Item number 5 is potential action regarding the proposed 2025 budget. And as I said during the PPI meeting, our finance, our CFO is not here. So considering how much work this board and myself done with Bob Barron throughout this past year, somebody want to explain why he's not here? Scott, you're the CEO, so you.
Well, he does.
Let me just say this. Commissioner, thank you for your comments about Bob Barron. We looked at the meeting in preparation for this meeting for last year, and there were no questions about the budget because we had already gone through the budget multiple times at different levels with Board of Finance, with the full board, with the towns. So to your point, I'll let Chris Stone answer that question, but at the last meeting, this meeting last year, there were no questions about the budget approval. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, Scott, I mean, what you're saying is that, because there weren't any questions last year, that you expect there won't be any questions this year, and we don't need Bob Barron here. So
No, I
understand what you're
didn't
saying.
say that. We have staff here. I think it's completely inappropriate for you bringing up the issue, but go ahead, Chris.
It is?
No, if there are questions about the budget, we have.
I don't think so.
We have staff to
If I
answer
might,
it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. We have staff here that can answer any questions you might have. It's certainly not, questions are encouraged, and if you have questions, please don't hesitate to bring them up. We have staff here to answer those questions. Bob is retired.
Okay.
I can't,
I get it.
More, I'd have to have, we'd have to go into executive session. I'd have to give Bob notice of the executive session. He has the opportunity to have that in public session. If you'd like to have a special meeting to do all that, we'd be more than happy to.
Well, I'm trying to understand, this, and I'm not being facetious. I mean, we're 3 meetings away from a budget. I mean, there's tonight, there's government committee, and there's the next board meeting, and I don't know if there's another one after that.
I don't think so, but not before the end of
So-
the year.
And staff
So-
has the right to retire. The
Yeah,
staff retired.
I get that. I get the staff has the right to retire. I understand that.
And we have staff here who is part of the team, who has been with Bob the whole way. So the staff has the right to retire, and I think it's completely inappropriate, for the record, for the chairman of finance to ask that question.
Really?
Really.
Well, there's people here to answer any questions you might have, so let's.
I'm not suggesting that there aren't people here that can answer the questions. I'm just asking why, after working on a budget for a year with our chief financial officer, he's not here, and you tell me that he's retired.
He has retired.
Okay, so when did he retire?
if we're going to get into those
I think that's fair. I don't think that's a, you know, like, did he retire? It's recently, obviously.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you know, I think that I would like to, you know, understand what's going on with that a little better. I would also like to get the budget out of here if we can, but I think I would like to understand it. Commissioner Taylor?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm not a member of this committee. However, as chairman of PP&I, I would have thought that as a matter of courtesy, that I would have been informed that Bob Barum was considering retiring. And I'm surprised and quite frankly somewhat taken aback that that courtesy was not extended to me. I guess I just would like to have some explanation and some discussion as to why PP&I was cut out of this. We're talking about a senior officer of this body. And I think that we have a vested interest in the composition of senior staff.
Well, I would, and just to respond, I'll certainly get to Commissioner Curran. I would say that, you know, I wasn't, that the members of this board, I think could have been notified and also, you know, notified of who's going to be responsible or become responsible for what Bob was doing. But go ahead, Commissioner Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for John. When is the next district meeting?
December 9th.
December 9th? I would ask, based on your questions, Chairman Salemi, that I revise the agenda to include executive session for December 9th to discuss this issue that you're raising. That'll give Attorney Stone ample time to contact Mr. Barron to determine what direction he'd like to go, whether public or executive session. And then the entire board can be apprised of what's occurred. If that's okay with you?
Well, I just would like to hear from the board here. If they're, you know, willing to do that, we're going to get a presentation, and I assume that on the budget, and I assume that that the staff that's here is certainly capable of doing it. But I think that I'm just going to say that I thought that it wasn't exactly courteous, and I would say that in my estimation, I don't know of anybody that's done this, but I do understand that this may have happened before. So, does anybody else have any comment about this?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just,
Yeah.
I'll take responsibility for that. That the first time this has happened in situations like this, and I probably should have reached out a bit further to inform others in positions such as Al had mentioned that what's occurred, and I apologize for that.
I you know, appreciate that you're doing that, but I would say that, you know, you're not the, you certainly weren't the only person involved in this, and I doubt seriously that, you know, that you were involved in it in the beginning. So you know, I understand you're the chair and you want to do that. And I will, you know, if there isn't anybody else that wants to hear about it tonight, then I certainly do, but, you know, I'm willing to, when's the meeting? Is that the 9th?
Number 9th. And the issue is, Mr. Chair, that based on what Attorney Stone has said and proper protocol in terms of Mr. Barron's rights, that we really can't hear from it tonight.
Well, I'm not saying I need to hear from him.
Oh, no, we
I'm
can't hear.
just
Can't
hearing.
hear from anybody about it tonight within public session unless Mr. Barron gives the okay to do that, or we can go into executive session. But he has to be given, he has a right to be notified in how he would like that presented to the board.
Well, I didn't ask anything of him. I'm just saying that nobody notified me. Go ahead, Al, Al Taylor.
Excuse me. Excuse me. You were notified by district council last Thursday, correct?
Notified what? Of what?
He was leaving
That he retired.
on Friday.
No, what he notified me of was that somebody was supposed to call me and they didn't call me. That's what he told me. You asked me not to say anything to anybody. You did. So, I'm not yelling at you, Chris, come on. This is a pretty big, pretty serious here. We had our finance director is not here, okay?
What I said to you was that Bob had retired and that I would be available today to speak with you generally about the circumstances under his retirement. And I didn't see you. I was tied up with the chairman up until 4 o'clock, so I apologize for that, but that's what I said.
And for the record, I talked to the vice chairman, DeBella, last Thursday, and I talked to the vice chair of Board of Finance.
You didn't talk to me, though.
No, Chris
I
called
talked
you.
You talked to me and you said, don't tell Don that I called you. He's supposed to call you. That's what you said.
I told you why he was gonna call you.
And I've been sitting around waiting for somebody to tell me what's going on, and nobody has. So, basically, that's where we're at, and we'll wait until the district board meeting, and you're saying that we're gonna have an executive session at the meeting to talk about it? Talk about it.
John, you'll take care of that?
Yes.
Chairman? Buddy? Chairman?
Yes.
I guess, without getting into any details, was there a separation agreement or any kind of agreements that were entered into?
We can talk about that. We can talk about that.
Mr. Chairman,
Executive session. We
Thank
can
you,
talk about
thank
that.
you.
Commissioner Russo?
You'll know all about it, but let's talk about that.
this is not the proper venue
Thank you.
to have these discussions. I mean, we're the Board of Finance, we're here with an agenda relating to the budget. And I would respectfully request that we just adhere to the agenda and deal with this issue at the proper time, at the proper meeting.
I understand that. I
I
understand that.
understand what you're saying. I didn't know he retired until right now. It would have been nice, just as a matter of courtesy, and Chairman Curry has indicated he's taking responsibility for that. If a memo could have been sent out informing that Mr. Barron retired effective whatever date, and who would be stepping into the responsibilities of his duties for the interim. And that's it.
I understand.
I understand, but I think this is,
I
we're
just don't-
crossing some lines here that I think we
I
should.
don't appreciate being told that that my behavior about this is improper at all, because it's not.
This,
I think that it was rude to let the Board of Finance get all the way here to tonight without a discussion on it.
I
And,
can appreciate.
you know, I think that we need to discuss it. Okay, so let's move on to item number 5. As I said, consideration, I'm sorry, we're at 4. Recommendation from the Water Bureau regarding customer assistance grants administered by Operation Fuel.
Move the item.
Second. If I might, Mr. Chairman, this is John Myrtle. There's no action required. This item had been brought to Water Bureau back in October, and the suggestion recommendation was to increase the funding for the customer assistance grants administered by Operation Fuel from the $50,000, which had been in place since 2018, to $100,000. That increase, the $100,000 total for the program, is already encapsulated in the proposed budget that's before you. So Water Bureau kind of weighed in with their recommendation for that increase in funding. This item is simply receiving that recommendation, and if the budget approved as included, or that line item as included in the draft budget, it's already covered, but it's Water Bureau's recommendation to finance.
I understand that, but it's an agenda item, so I think at this point, we're going to allow, commissioners to, and there is some information that came with it. Any commissioners that have any questions about this, we did discuss it. We did think that the program was working well enough, was worthy of, certainly of increasing. We're actually doubled the budget to this program from 50,000 to 100,000. Commissioner Adam?
We did discuss this, and it was a unanimous decision to move forward. I think it was, a very positive decision, and that we were told that it'll be for any either member or non-member town with certain restrictions that were fairly new, and there'd be a lot more closely monitored than before to add the additional funding. So I think it was a genuinely positive response to it.
Thank you. I know it was generally received well at the Water Bureau, so I appreciate that. If there's no other comments on it, as the clerk said, it is already part of the budget, and the district board will vote on it when the budget's there. Item number 5, consideration of potential action regarding proposed 2025 budget. There are 5 separate items to deal with. Are we going to have, Kelly, are you going to do this capital budget? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, we're with staff, yeah.
Please go ahead.
Okay. I don't have the agenda in front of me, but are we talking about the capital budget?
That's 5, yeah, that's 5A. So capital improvement budget and funding.
Yep. So we have the capital budget in front of you tonight. And it's a resolution appropriating $192,990 for the district's capital improvement program and the issuance of bonds and notes in that amount for finance to issue those bonds for all of our capital improvement projects. I think they're all laid out in the budget in this resolution. I don't know if you want me to go through every project or we.
I don't think we need to do that. I think that what we've done in the past was let commissioners ask about projects that they may have a question about an individual project, so we can kind of go through that. And
I mean, I do have a presentation to go over the
yeah,
overall
and
budget.
that's fine. If you want to,
This is the operating budget that we were going to go through, like the process of the budgeting for the year. It's
I don't.
kind of a-
I'm just trying to answer your question. I don't think you need to talk about each individual project in
Right.
detail unless a commissioner asks about it.
Right, okay, all right. Well, why don't I take a step back and go through the overall budget here? If we can go back one more slide for me. Sorry about that. So what we wanted to do tonight is go over the overall budget. Both Mike Moore, the controller, our controller, who worked closely with Bob up until his retirement, as well as myself and our entire staff here, to put forth the budget tonight. And I do want to recognize the staff as well as Mike for putting this budget together. Sharice Rogers, if you could stand up or wave. Sharice has been with the district coming up on her 10-year anniversary, which is her vesting anniversary, and the entire 10 years she's been in the budget department. She's a great data analyst, getting her second master's degree in data analytics. Her first is an MBA, and she's done that while she's been here at the district. So she's been a huge support prior to our manager of budget retiring, Lisa Remsen. You might remember her from a couple years ago. Well, Sharice took the assistant manager of budget position under Mike, and she's an integral part of developing our budget and has been for the last 10 years. Her team, JP Avenoso and Kim Cummings, financial analysts in the budget department, JP has been here for 5 years. JP started as a professional level trainee, came right from the very start in finance and has been promoted up through to a financial analyst in the budget department. This is his second year on the budget team. And Kim joined us just about a year ago from East Hartford, where she was an associate director of finance in the town of East Hartford. So we were able to bring her here to the district. Kim, did you stand up too? Yep. And she's brought a wealth of knowledge to our team. And I will tell you, for the last couple of years, our forecasting for our budget, which is why you see such a tight budget compared and actuals, and our forecasting is getting better every year because of this team right here. So I just want to let you know that we are very capable and great team that works on this budget with every department. Every month they meet, they go over the actuals to the budget forecast, and they refine that forecast, and they do a phenomenal job. So I want to let you know that that this budget is a result of their hard work. Okay. So what I also want to do is go over the budget calendar. And Mike is then going to take over and just go over the expenditures and revenues, the totals for both the water and sewer operating expenditures and revenues. He'll go over the budget summary for this year, and not a lot has changed since October. We really made no changes since October. You did not come forth with any other changes. The changes that we talked about in our October meeting, we made those changes, and we shared them. Already. Actually, we made them between September and October and shared them with you in October. So no further changes were made to the budget. So what you're seeing is really just an overview of where we were in October and where we are today. We also wanted to share with you the ad valorem and what the zero increase to overall ad valorem is going to look like for each of the member towns in terms of their quarterly payments. They're anxious to see that, and John will issue those letters to them once the budget is passed. And then, as we always end every budget workshop or presentation, we'll show you what the impact is to the water bill for our customers. That hasn't changed at all since our initial proposed budget in September. Next slide, please. So just to go over the budget calendar so you can see where we are today, we're on 11/25, and that's the Board of Finance meeting to consider and recommend the budget to the board, the 2025 budget to the board. What have we done so far? We started back at the end of September with our initial proposed budget. At the initial Board of Finance meeting. The very next day, we shared that budget with the town managers at our first town meeting. That's where we shared with them the estimated 0% ad valorem increase. We also shared with them the public hydrant increase of $10 per hydrant. They were really interested, though, in the ad valorem, so I think the $10 hydrant fee was okay at that point. We also went to the district board meeting October 7th, where the board referred the budget back to Board of Finance to review. We had our recommendations and talked in October at the next Board of Finance meeting, where we shared some of the changes that were requested of us. We also then had the following day again, the second town meeting. We had a couple of the towns attend where there were very few changes, actually none that affected the towns. 11/7, we had the public hearing where the rates and the ordinance revisions as well as the total budget was shared in the public hearing. We had one public comment at that public hearing. And last, on the 18th, which was last week, I believe, the weeks are running together for me, we had the Water Bureau and the Public Works Bureau referred the sewer rates and water rates. We had very few rate increases this year. As you know, the water rate increase, the Clean Water Project charge increase, and the other rate increases, like I mentioned on the water side, the hydrant maintenance rate went up $10. And there were just a few other rates that went up or were added, but very few. We've really been able to maintain, as Scott had mentioned in the PPI committee meeting and most of the meetings we've had, is that we've really been able to maintain our rates, and we're very proud of that. And so what do we have next after tonight? We're hoping that the Board of Finance will refer the budget to the board. We have, as Chairman Salemi had mentioned, the government committee to approve the revisions and refer the budget and the revisions and all the rates to the district board. And on the 9th, we hope that the board will be adopted. And that levy, which is the taxes to the towns and the quarterly payments, will be issued by John to the member towns by the 31st of December. And that's where we are in the budget calendar, and we're happy to be about 2/3 of the way through at this point. Next slide, please. I want to turn this presentation over to Mike Moore, who's going to talk about where we are with the budget and just that overview of the budget. And he can answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. As Kelly mentioned, this data and this information that we're looking at is unchanged from the October meeting. There haven't been any changes since then. So what I'll go through are just a few slides to reiterate where we were in October. And so the first slide, could you go back one slide, please? Thank you. So the first slide talks to the expenditures and the revenues. We have a 6.2% expense increase proposed for next year, and we have a revenue increase of 6.2% to cover the expense increase. On the expense side, the top lines that are increasing are debt. The debt increase is due to the GO bond with a first payment due in 2025. That debt is $5 million allocated to water and $0.2 million allocated to sewer for a total of $5.2 million. Secondly, employee benefits, they're increasing by $3.1 million, all of which is due to medical services. We have a $3.4 million increase in medical services due to a 7.6% increase in paid claims. So more than 100% of the benefit increase is due to medical services. That's partially offset by $300K due to an operations headcount net reduction from 399 to 396. On the revenue side, the two largest items for revenue are sale of water. Sale of water is up $5.5 million year over year. $4.6 million of that is due to the rate increase of 11 cents combined with the consumption assumption for 2025. And then there's another $900K of revenue on the sale of water due to some of the items that Kelly had mentioned, such as hydrant fees, et cetera. On other operating revenues, that's up $7.2 million year over year. The primary driver there is the sludge revenue. So we've seen a significant increase in sludge revenue, and we've budgeted for that for 2025. In addition, we have another $2.4 million based on high flow and high strength, primarily due to, I believe it's Coca-Cola, right, Therese? Yep. And then there's also some smaller items such as $400K for septage, and combined, that gets us back to that $7.2 million increased revenues. Next slide, please. So this is the budget summary slide, as was shown at the prior meeting, and it shows us how ad valorem and the water sales were calculated. So if we look first for sewer ad valorem, we have a budget of $107 million OpEx. minus 53.9 million from other revenue sources. That leaves us with 53.1 million to charge for ad valorem, which again is 0% increase from last year, so no increase from last year. On the water side, we have 119.7 million in OpEx, less 22.8 million in other revenues, leaves us at 96.9 million in water sales. And those are the sales that are based, as it shows on the left-hand side, of a water rate of $3.91, which is an 11-cent increase from last year, and 18.3 million CCF's consumption. In total, it shows on the bottom left, total operating expenditures again are 226.7 million, which again is that 6.2% increase versus 2024. Okay, yep, thank you. So for ad valorem, you can see the budget for 2025 at 53.1 million. This is the fourth consecutive year that ad valorem is budgeted at 53.1. The bottom schedule shows the town payment schedule. It's been calculated by quarter, and this would be sent to the member towns once the final budget is set and approved. And again, it totals that 53.1, so no change year over year. Next slide, please. Oh, there we go. Okay. This slide shows the average customer water bill based on sale of water. And again, from 2024 to 2025, there's an 11-cent increase in the water use charge, or 2.9%. Meanwhile, the Clean Water Project charge is showing a 24-cent increase from $4.33 to $4.57. So for a member town, an average user would pay $35 per year annual, an increase of $35 annually in 2025 versus 2024. And for a non-member water only with the water use charge, they would expect to pay on average $11 more annually versus 2024. So that's the presentation. Again, this is all the same as what was shown in October. There were no changes, but I'll stop here and take any questions.
Yeah, I'd like to ask, as you know, Michael, I know you were here, for all the meetings. So, there was a discussion with the CFO at the time regarding the surplus that was generated during the past year. So my understanding is that it was generated from sludge treatment that was in our estimates were that we wound up treating a lot more sludge than we thought we were going to. So we had an increased revenues from that, which is great. I mean, it's kind of like a windfall in a way. And also from, I think increased interest payments on our investments. We received, we hold the money before we spend it in accounts where, interest paid against it. And we got a lot more than we thought we were going to get. So the vast majority of it was kind of a windfall from either interest or sludge treatment and some other issues. But by the time we learned what the total amount was, our understanding is that it was expended by calculating it in the budget on the ad valorem side. So I'm trying to understand exactly how that works. So the actual cost of the ad valorem side went up by $5.5 million, and we covered that additional cost with the surplus. Is that the right way to characterize that, or is that a mistake?
No, generally that's correct. So the surplus that we generated was in 2023 on the sewer revenue side, and so it was a combination, as you mentioned, of sludge revenue. There was some interest. There was also some high flow revenue, and finally some septage revenue. And so combined, that gave us about $5.5 million of surplus. And so when we initially created the budget for 2025, we utilized that 5.5 million as a revenue source. So to your point, had we not utilized that 5.5 million, then ad valorem could have increased by that amount.
Okay, are there any other questions about this? So, Commissioner Curry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could we go back to page 6, ad valorem? That answered my question. I was looking at the bottom and not the top. I won't ask that. But can we go back to page 4 now? You've got, under revenue source sale of water, 6% increase. Can you break that down in terms of the proposed increase versus the increase in consumption that would generate that 6%?
Yep, 1 second, I believe. Yeah, I believe we can see that on the next slide, on slide 5. And so it's the schedule to the right, the water schedule. And so what that shows is the water sales is up 6%. And when you look at consumption, the consumption charges are up 6.8%, and the service charges up, I believe that's 3.8%. That's small text. And so it's the combination of the consumption charges and the service charges that nets out to that 6% overall.
Okay, thank you. Just went by it too
Sure,
fast for me.
sorry.
Well, on the same topic, as I recall, and I think Bob explained it, but I still have some questions. We are down a percentage on water sales from the 2024 budget, and yet we're going up 6% for 2025, even though we're short on 2024. It's a fairly significant difference on the projections for 2025. I'm sure I'm no accountant or, a numbers person per se, so there must be a good explanation for that, and I think maybe Bob did, but if we.
Yeah,
could
well,
address
we've
that.
talked about this numerous times, Commissioner, at the Water Bureau, at Board of Finance and full board. So the last meeting of Water Bureau, we talked about the fact that we are benefiting from commercial. We're starting to see, we're up, help me, Bob, 1.1% to the end of the year or is it 1.7 for commercial? It's 1.6. 1.6% year to date on commercial consumption. There is a difference between our expectation of what we thought we were going to get in interest rates from last year. But we are seeing, as you know, we just got done approving multiple developments in Hartford and elsewhere. And so our expectation is, as you know, we're guesstimating, right? We know that we're up 1.6% in commercial this year. Our expectation is that's going to grow, which is our guesstimate on the water consumption portion of the 6%. But it's a guesstimate, right? We that's how we do our business. We guesstimate what we're going to sell of water for next year based on trends that we see this year, but it's November, right? So we start this budget process in September. We're guessing. It's a guesstimate. And we did the good thing in the last 3 years, 4 years. We started to bottom out. We were, as you know, we were bottoming out. We were 17.1, 17.5 a million CCF, and we slowly started to bottom out and started to come and to rise, and that is truly because of development. So we're hopeful, and we're looking forward to we've got 1,000 units that are, we're negotiating an agreement with CRDA for Capitol Avenue, 1,000 units. There's a number of units in other towns as well. So it's a guesstimate, right?
Good, thank you. Yeah, I remember that now. And then as far as the ad valorem goes, as a former mayor, I know that when we got great breaks from the MDC for our ad valorem, we didn't then tell the town member, oh, by the way, we're able to, not charge you more for this service because we're getting this from MDC. So I would recommend that for our next year's budget, we give some real consideration to Chairman Curry's idea of a rate stabilization fund for any other surpluses that come our way, because we're never going to get credit from the towns, and we will get the blame when the ad valorem has to go up dramatically for one reason or another, because next year interest rates are most likely going to continue to decline,
Sure.
et cetera. So I don't think we'll have those great, pluses that we got. It's like what the legislature has done in 2017 by making sure any of those, added revenues from the stock market don't just go right back in to get spent. They go back towards our pension fund, which for our teachers and such that they deserve to have funded properly. So let's just give some real consideration to that for next year.
And to your point, Commissioner, I spent a good part of an hour or so on the phone with Commissioner Lester and a resident from Bloomfield Sunday regarding, and we've brought this to the attention of the board and to the towns. We are now charging the $9 per month to the sewer side of the water bill. So there's a customer service charge for water. There's a customer service charge for sewer that was implemented in 2018. It started out as $3. It went $3, $6, and $9. It's been flat for 4 years. But we have 600 residents in Bloomfield who received letters that says we're going to be creating this customer service account for you, and we're going to charge you $9 a month. I talked to Mr. Duncan, Roy Duncan, and he was very concerned. He thought this was a new charge. I explained to him this is a charge that everyone's been paying since 2018. It's just that we didn't have the data to actually easily document and create an account for Mr. Duncan's of the world. So he was very happy and very thankful. But what he did say, and I explained to him, we're charging you $9 a month, but we're reducing the cost to the towns by that same amount. Now, whether the town reduces the ad valorem cost to the customers, that's not for us to decide. But we have shifted cost to the customer, not increased the cost to the customer.
Very good, thank you.
Anyone else? Well, before we move on to the tax on member towns and municipalities, my question is this, that, and I don't think, it certainly hasn't been any secret that I'm not in favor of this, but, this is the budget that we've got. The issue that I have with it is that, if it costs for the ad valorem side increased over $5 million this year, and it seems like we were, that the additional revenues were sort of like windfalls, that we were lucky to have the $5.5 million to cover those costs. But, without a surplus of $5.5 million next year, if the costs just stay the same, if they don't go up, if they just stay the same, we're going to be $5.5 million short because we don't have a surplus to pay for it. And that's the kind of shock that I think the towns don't, maybe the towns, listen, somebody gives you $5.5 million, you take it, you go home and you say, great, like Andy said, we got some extra money. But the real issue is a year from now. And that was my issue on it. And I thought that Commissioner Curry's idea of the rate stabilization fund for the ad valorem side as well as the water side was a good idea because it would help smooth out some of the bumps in the road. We wouldn't have such large peaks and valleys You know, so, but that being said, I think that we should make that clear, make sure we make that clear to the towns that, you know, that this came to them as a gift in a way. I mean, it's basically, the whole surplus was turned over in one shot. And we may not be able to do anything like that the next time. That was really my point, so. I don't know if we have to take any action on item number 5, A through E. Those are just basically, do we need to take an action on those, or?
That's the budget.
All right, so do we have to do them one at a time? Is that why they're split up like this? or-
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have to call for each one of these items. On 5A is the capital improvement budget and funding. So we're going to call for a vote. So all in favor of accepting the budget as proposed, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
5A, aye.
Is it a roll call?
Nope, we need somebody to move approval of 5A.
Move approval of 5A.
Okay, well,
Second.
move it, okay. It was just in front of us. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of accepting the budget as presented for capital improvement and funding, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So none of these are roll calls, right? These are all just majority votes, okay. Budget expenditures,
So moved.
Second.
moved and seconded. Any questions, comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Budget revenues,
So moved.
Second.
motion's been made and seconded. Are there any questions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the budget revenues as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 5D, hydroelectric expenditures and revenues.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of accepting it as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Item 5E, referral of proposed 2025 budget to the district board.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments? This is our actual referral to the board. Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 6, consideration of potential action regarding the 2025 tax on member town municipalities. I believe we have the actual tax presented. Is there someone that wants to just go through this quick, or?
It's in the budget presentation.
Yeah, I know it was, but if there's anybody that has a question about it, I know we've had some questions at our last meeting regarding nonprofits and institutions that don't pay taxes. I just want to make sure that all those questions are answered and people are satisfied with that. Is this going to be a roll call, or is this just a majority vote?
Majority vote.
Okay. Item number 6, consideration potential action of the 2025 tax on member municipalities. All in favor of accepting as presented, signify by saying aye.
We need somebody to.
I'm sorry, yeah, we need a motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. Item number 6 carries unanimously. Item number 7, consideration of potential action regarding setting the district's 2025 referendum threshold.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any questions about this? Didn't have any questions before. Everybody understand what this is? All in favor of accepting the referendum threshold as presented, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Item number 8, opportunity for general public comments. Are there any general public comments? Any general public comments? Nobody online either? Nothing?
There is. No one's-
There's no
one
comments
raised
from
hands.
anyone online? Okay, so. Hearing none, item number 9, Commissioner requests for future agenda items. Hearing none. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made. Without objection, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.